Hey everybody. So, with the San Jose Sharks Game 7 win last night, we are down to our final four NHL teams, Eastern and Western Conference final times in the playoffs. This round decides who goes to the Stanley Cup and who has a chance to win it all in the next and final round of the playoffs. But with now that the final four teams are set, I want to talk about really, all four of these teams a little bit because we have four very, very good teams remaining in the NHL. Obviously, they have to be good to have made it this far, but I think obviously there are some surprises in there. I think two of these teams I would call a surprise, and two of these teams we kind of thought might have what it takes to get here. And, obviously Boston was a powerhouse team all season long. San Jose was a very popular Stanley Cup pick before the season even started. Once they got Erik Karlsson, that really seemed to push them over the edge in the minds of a lot of fans. So I wouldn't say that we're surprised to see Boston and San Jose here. What we are surprised to see is Carolina, a wild card team, and St. Louis, who was dead last in the league at the beginning of January, now making it this deep into the playoffs. So I want to talk a little bit about each of these teams, but first, I want to say that, any of these remaining teams have a very good chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Any of these four teams could easily win the Cup. These are very, very good teams. And I saw something really, really stupid on Facebook today. It might be the dumbest thing I've seen all playoffs. And it was some stupid meme about how no matter who, the two Eastern Conference teams have no chance of beating the West. And I thought to myself, how dumb can you be? Like, who in their right mind can say that that Carolina or Boston have no chance of beating St. Louis or San Jose? That is just absolutely idiotic. Any of these remaining teams can win the Stanley Cup. They have made it this far for a reason. I mean, Boston really hasn't played all that well at times in these playoffs, especially in the first round. Boston was largely outplayed in the first round by Toronto, but they found a way to win. And teams that find ways to win are extremely dangerous. Carolina might be the hottest team in all of hockey right now. They knock off the defending champion Capitals, and then they blow through the Islanders in a sweep. How can you say that team has no chance? San Jose, look at the Sharks. They've won 2 Game 7s already. The Sharks have the experience, and they are building on that experience, and they have already won 2 Game 7s. And St. Louis didn't even belong near the playoffs. They didn't belong anywhere near the playoffs come January. They shouldn't have even been a playoff team. They were dead last in the league, and then they just rose from the dead, made the playoffs, and now they've gone on this incredible run so far, and it continues into the third round. I mean, any of these teams can easily win the Stanley Cup. But let's start looking at Boston. Boston, I think once Washington and Tampa got knocked out in the first round, I think it became, kind of Boston's Eastern Conference to lose. I think they're kind of expected to be this far at this point. Given, they were, one of the top teams in the regular season. They had a 19-game point streak during the season. And this Boston Bruins team has been a powerhouse all year long. I think at times they kind of flew under the radar a little bit. But this Boston team has really performed well for most of this season. And in the playoffs, they are finding ways to win. Like I said earlier, I think a lot of that Toronto series, they got outplayed. Game 2, the obvious exception, but especially early on in that series, Toronto controlled the puck. Toronto controlled the game and got the better chances, but Boston found ways to win. And when you're in the playoffs, sometimes that's what it comes down to, is just finding a way to win. And Boston has been able to do that so far. I think Boston looked better against Columbus than they did against Toronto, and they had some very, very good games against the Blue Jackets. And But that was no easy series either. And Carolina is not going to be an easy series. But Boston very much could be a Stanley Cup team this year, especially not having to go through Tampa Bay. Moving to Carolina now. Listen, if you had told me at the beginning of the season that the Carolina Hurricanes were going to be in the Eastern Conference Final, I would have laughed in your face. I would have openly laughed in your face and said, no, they're not even going to make the playoffs. But look at how wrong I would have been. This team has really come together and really done a great job this season. And I think the scariest thing about this Carolina team is that they have gotten better and better as the playoffs have gone on. The playoffs didn't start out great for them. They dropped both games 1 and 2 in Washington, and game 1 really was heavily in Washington's favor, and it didn't look good for Carolina early. But then they got onto home ice, and boy, do they have a home ice advantage. Carolina in Carolina is very, very difficult to beat. It's gonna take a lot for a team to beat Carolina in Carolina, and that they seem to believe in themselves more and more as the first round went on, and then they forced the game 7 against Washington, and they won that game 7, and then they just blew through the Islanders. That Islanders series wasn't even close, just blew through them. This Carolina team is very scary, and it's going to be, an absolute dogfight between Boston and Carolina in the East. And moving out west, like I said, San Jose has already won 2 Game 7s. This is a team with a ton of experience already. A lot of guys who went to the Stanley Cup final back in, 2016 when they 2016 when they lost to Pittsburgh. There's many guys still remaining from that team on this team. The core of that team is relatively the same with, Burns and Pavelski and Thornton and Couture. They've added some other pieces there. They've obviously brought in Erik Karlsson this season. But this San Jose team is talented. They're experienced, and they've already been through so much in these playoffs. They were down 3-1 to Vegas, and they came back and won in Game 7. And now they just won another Game 7 against Colorado. This team has what it takes to win. And they're a very scary team as well. And then St. Louis, I can't even begin to describe this season for St. Louis. This team was done. They were dead in January. Last place in the league. Blow it up, fire everyone, start from scratch. And then they just ripped off all these wins in February and March and just kept winning and winning and winning. And that has carried over into the playoffs. They were able to win a Game 7 against Dallas. They were able to beat Winnipeg in the first round in what was a very close series, a low-scoring series. St. Louis's defense has been fantastic. Their defense and goaltending has been phenomenal. They are winning very low-scoring games, and that is going to be interesting to see if the Sharks can get their offense going against a team as good defensively as St. Louis. I think the Western Conference Final is going to be extremely, extremely tight. Listen, any of these remaining teams can win the Stanley Cup. I would not be surprised if both conference finals go to 7 games apiece, because these teams are very tightly matched, very close, and it's going to come down to execution and who wants it more. Who is able to play at their best at the big spots, and who wants it more? Who is going to gut out these wins? And when, that's what we're going to be looking for. And that's what we're going to be watching for. And listen, I constantly have people asking me who's going to win, what's the score, what are your predictions? I'm done doing predictions for this year. I am not predicting anything the rest of the playoffs. You know why? Because I have no clue. Boston could win, Carolina could win just as easily. San Jose could win, St. Louis could win just as easily. I don't know who's going to win these games. I don't know what the score is going to be. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. These teams are so tight and so close to each other and so evenly matched that anything really can happen. I have no idea what's going to happen. So rather than worrying about predictions and trying to get things right and trying to, foretell the future, really, let's be done with the predictions. Let's just sit back and enjoy the hockey, because we're going to see some incredible hockey played in this round, and hopefully also in the Stanley Cup final. We're going to see some incredible hockey being played, very high-level hockey, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I expect these games to be very, very tight, very close, probably a lot of overtime games, and it is going to come down to inches. It's going to be the littlest thing that sets the one team over the top from the other. And that's the best thing about the NHL playoffs, is how close it is. Anyone can win. And it's all about who executes best in the big spots and who wants it more. And that's, I think, what the rest of these playoffs are going to come down to. But let's just enjoy it, because it's already the beginning. We're already over a week into May. We've only got about a month or so left of hockey, and then we're done. Hockey's done until October of next year. So let's enjoy it and let's soak this in, because I think we're going to see two tremendous conference finals this season, and I think we're very likely to see an extremely exciting Stanley Cup final as well. And it won't matter which of the four teams make it or which of the four teams win it. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So again, I think any of these teams can easily win the Cup this year. They're all very, very good. And they're all playing very good hockey right now, and I think that's the biggest thing. You know, what you did in October and November means absolutely nothing now. The playoffs are all about what have you done this week? And these teams are all playing very good hockey right now. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Sit back, enjoy it. I'm going to stream as much as I can. I'm going to be watching as many of these games as I can, and enjoy the last few weeks of hockey here, because I think it's going to be very, very good. And with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.